Welcome to the Inner Self-Confidence Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Delimon. Real talk for women who are done overthinking, freezing, or abandoning themselves. If you are ready to feel calm in your body, trust yourself, and speak up without forcing it, you're in the right place. Because confidence isn't something you perform, it's something you build from the inside out. Let's go. Okay, well, welcome back to another bonus episode of the Inner Self-Confidence Podcast. I have recently been writing a whole lot more. I have just gotten my fourth Mamma Mia article confirmed, my second Huffington Post, another Daily Mail, something in newspaper, Women's Agenda. I'm getting quite a few writing opportunities, and there's this publishing company who does a contest basically every month, and it has people submit things, and it always has a theme. Last month was the How I Learned to Leave. This month's contest is entitled Time is a Strange Animal. And this publishing company is seeking essays, memoirs, flash fiction, short stories, and poetry that explores nonlinear experiences of time. So they're looking for work that challenges traditional chronology and reflects the strange elasticity of memory, aging, and lived experience. So this is the essay that I wrote for Time is a Strange Animal, and I'm calling it The Same Moment Four Times. Here it is. Trauma does not experience time the way a clock does. A clock moves forward, always forward. Tick, tick, tick. 1 second dying so the next one can be born. But the traumatized mind, the mind that has been asked to hold something too large, too threatening, too destabilizing to the story it needs to believe about itself and the people it loves, that mind does something else entirely. It loops. It folds the unbearable into small, tight package, tucks it away somewhere beneath the conscious awareness, and then it waits. Not passively, actively. The way a body waits when it is holding its breath. Tense, vigilant, ready. And every so often when the conditions are right, when something in the environment carries the same charge as the original moment, the package surfaces. It floats up from wherever it has been kept and presents itself again as if it to say, are you ready yet? Can you hold this now? Sometimes you can. Sometimes you fold it back down and say, not yet. And the mind, patient, protective, relentless, tucks it away again and waits for the next time. I've been asked to hold the same truth 4 times across 4 decades. The same truth in 4 different rooms, in 4 different bodies, because the person I was at 8 was not the person I was at 18. And the person I was at 18 was not the person I was at 33. And none of those women were the woman sitting on a meditation cushion in Brisbane at 38 when the truth finally completely landed. The truth was always the same. I was not. That is what time does when trauma is involved. It doesn't move you forward. It moves you in circles, tightening, spirals, really returning you again and again to the same unresolved moment until you have built enough of yourself to finally stand inside of it without collapsing. This is a story of a truth that waited 38 years for me to be ready. And this is a story of what time actually looks like when the body is keeping score. The first time the truth found me, I was 8 years old and didn't know that's what it was. I was standing in the living room of our New Jersey home, tall enough to see over the arm of my father's recliner. Hardwood floor beneath my feet, the television humming softly, the dining room ahead of me, and beyond that the kitchen, where my mother moved with that particular energy she had. Purposeful, slightly volatile, and a weather system that could turn without warning. I'd been looking at my family photos in the hallway. My sisters Cassie and Dee looked strangely alike, despite being 13 years apart. Same brown hair, same freckles, same smile. Then I looked at myself, reflected back in the dark television screen. Blonde, blue-eyed, something that didn't quite match. Dad, I asked, why don't I look like my sisters? He laughed a little too quickly from his recliner. I don't know, he said. Why don't you go ask your mother? She's a lot smarter than me. Then my mother's voice came slicing through the house from the kitchen. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? The room went still. Not silent exactly. The television was still on, dishes still moving in the sink, But something in the emotional atmosphere changed instantly. My father shut down. I shut down. The question disappeared almost as quickly as it had arrived. I went back to coloring my book and pressed the crayon into the paper harder than necessary. I was 8 years old. I didn't have the language for what had just happened. I understand now that my nervous system registered that moment as dangerous. Not physically dangerous, but emotionally dangerous. The kind of danger a child experiences as a threat to belonging, to love, to safety of the family itself. And so it did what brains do when something is too threatening to be processed consciously. It filed it away. Not deleted, not forgotten, filed. Stored in the body's vast and meticulous archive of things that cannot be held yet. The question went underground. The seed went into the dark, and time moved forward. Tick, 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 as if nothing had happened. Except something had. Something had been planted, and the body never forgets what has been planted, even when the mind has moved on entirely. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that arises when we hold two contradictory beliefs simultaneously. When reality conflicts with the story we need to believe, the mind doesn't simply update the story, it protects it. It does whatever is necessary to reduce the discomfort, which usually means dismissing, minimizing, or outright burying the information that threatens the narrative. For a child, the narrative that must be protected above all others is this: my family is safe, my parents love me, and I belong here. That narrative is not optional, it is survival. A child cannot afford to question the foundation of the only world they know. And so when information arrives that threatens that foundation, information like the man you call your father may not be your father, the mind does not evaluate it rationally. It cannot. The stakes are too high. It simply refuses, and the body stores what the mind refuses to hold. This is not weakness. This is not denial in any sense. This is the nervous system doing its job with extraordinary precision, protecting the organism from a truth it does not yet have the resources to survive. The question is always the same: not yet, but when. The second time the truth found me, I was 18 years old, and this time it arrived with a witness. It was graduation week in West Virginia. My bedroom smelled of Victoria's Secret strawberries and champagne. My cheetah print comforter was sprawled across the bed. The lava lamp on my dresser stretched slow colors across the wall. My brother Rob knocked once. He always knocked once, and came in carrying Zima and peach wine coolers. At last, a sibling send-off before I left for the summer. I dropped a watermelon Jolly Rancher into my Zima bottle, watching it dissolve, turning the already sweet drink sweeter. We sat cross-legged on the bed and talked about nothing for a while, and then his voice shifted. Not dramatically, just differently. The way a room shifts when someone is about to say something they have been carrying for a long time. I don't think Daddy is your dad, he said. I think it's Jerry. What happened next is something I've spent years trying to understand through the lens of trauma and memory, because my reaction was not what you might expect. I did not run downstairs demanding answers from my mother, even though she was only one room away. I did not confront anyone. I did not try to solve it immediately while the truth was still sitting there within reach. Instead, I cried. I argued. I pointed to my bow legs and my blue eyes, the only child in my family with them, as evidence that Bobby had to be wrong. I reached for every available piece of driftwood. But underneath the denial was something else entirely different. Not shock exactly, recognition. That is a part that still unsettles me the most. Because if some part of me hadn't already known, wouldn't I have marched into that kitchen demanding answers? Wouldn't I have needed certainty immediately? Instead, my nervous system did something far stranger. It protected me. Unable to face the possibility, unwilling to hold it fully, or maybe both, my mind did what it had already learned to do so well. It buried the truth. By the following morning, the conversation had already taken on the quality of a dream, something that had happened but somehow hadn't really happened. Something I folded away so completely that eventually I stopped thinking about it altogether. Bobby and I never spoke about it again, not once, for 20 years. But the body keeps its own sense of time. Somewhere underneath my conscious denial, my nervous system already understood something my mind could not yet hold. This was not a safe conversation, not with my mother, not in our family. So the truth went underground. The mind moved on, the body waited. Not yet, it said, but soon. The third time I was 33 and I was sitting in 10 days of silence on a mountain in the Sunshine Coast of Australia and nothing triggered it. That is a detail I want to linger on because it matters enormously to understanding how memory and time actually work in a traumatized nervous system. You don't have to have an obvious associative trigger. There was simply the absence of everything. A Vipassana retreat removes every distraction, every habit, every mechanism you have developed over a lifetime to avoid sitting with yourself. No talking, no phone, no books, no exercise, no eye contact, no stimulation of any kind. 10 hours of silent meditation a day, and into that profound, almost violent silence, the mind begins to do something extraordinary. It starts moving like water, finding its own level, flowing into every crack and crevice that busyness and noise had previously kept sealed. What surfaced was not dramatic. It arrived as feeling first, curiosity, and beneath it, something older, familiarity. The particular sensation of a door you have passed 1,000 times suddenly standing open. And then the memory came, whole and vivid. Bobby on the edge of my bed, the lava lamp, the Zima bottle, his voice saying the thing no one was supposed to say. 15 years had passed, and yet the memory arrived not as something distant, but as something immediate, present tense, fully embodied, as if no time had passed at all. Because for the body, no time had passed. The body had been holding that moment in suspension for 15 years, preserved with perfect fidelity, waiting for exactly this, a moment of sufficient stillness and safety for it to finally be examined. I sat with it. I felt the grief of it, for the girl who had frozen, for the brother who had tried to tell her, for the parents who built a house of silence and called it love. And then because I was 33 and not yet 38, because I had done significant healing but not yet enough, because the nervous system opens in layers and not all at once, I folded it away one final time, gently, more consciously than before, with more compassion for myself than I had managed at 18, but the same essential result. The truth went underground for the last time. The spiral made its final turn, and time moved forward, carrying me toward the morning in Brisbane when the waiting would finally end. I was 38 years old, end of November, already hot at 6 in the morning, that particular Queensland heat that arrives before the sun does, thick and close, carrying the smell of rain and frangipani. I lit a stick of Palo Santo, I settled onto my meditation cushion, and I told myself I would sit in stillness. Just a quick email check, I told myself again. One subject line blinked back. Your AncestryDNA results are ready. I clicked expecting statistics, not a story. No Eastern European DNA, a half-brother I had never heard of, a name, Jerry Badeau Jr., that I didn't recognize and yet somehow already knew. And then the memory, arriving not gradually but all at once, like a fault line giving way after decades of pressure. My mother, the beach, a man named Jerry, the way he used to sing my name, the way I always felt creeped out before I even knew what being creeped out meant. My breath didn't quicken, it vanished. Not because I was shocked, because I wasn't. Because somewhere beneath 38 years of cognitive architecture, beneath the walls of the mind had built and rebuilt and reinforced across 4 decades. The body had always known. Had known at 8 when it pressed a crayon too hard into a coloring book. Had known at 18 when it went still instead of shocked. Had known at 33 when it surfaced, the memory in a meditation hall, and waited patient as ever for the right moment. The right moment was now. And what I felt underneath the grief and the vertigo of a lifelong story rewiring itself was something I did not expect. Clarity. Context for a chaos I had carried my entire life without fully understanding. The quiet exhale of a nervous system that had been holding something for a very long time, finally being allowed to set it down. Here's what I understand now about time and trauma and the strange nonlinear way the mind protects us from what we cannot yet survive. Cognitive dissonance is not a flaw, it's protection. The mind walls off unbearable truths not because we are weak, but because realities arrive long before we have the internal safety to hold them. So the body waits. It returns to the same truth in different rooms, at different ages, in different forms, until one day the person standing there has finally built enough capacity to receive what has been waiting all along. I was not ready at 8. I was not ready at 18. I was not ready at 33. At 38, after years of healing, meditation, nervous system work, and slowly rebuilding a life that finally felt emotionally safe, I was ready. And time, strange, nonlinear, patient time, delivered the truth directly into my hands. Not late, not cruel, exactly on time. Thanks for listening to the Inner Self Confidence Podcast. If you liked this, let me know. I will continue to do these little bonus episodes. I am sharing what I'm writing. It's on my website. You can find it on my Instagram. My website is www.katiedelmon.com. You can also check out my book, Trust the Flames. And every book sold really and truly helps me write my second book because not sure if you know this, but writing a book is not quick, it is not easy, and it ain't cheap. So if you want to support me on my writing journey, please grab a copy of my book, leave me a review, or just, send me a message. I love connecting with people. And yeah, till next time, bye.